Hi, my name is Christina Brennan, and I'm part of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. And this is a moral fusion movement, long-term, and we are fighting the evils of poverty, systemic racism, ecological devastation, and the war economy by organizing the poor and other impacted people, as well as allies like myself, and just going to disrupt systems. And there's a huge list of national demands that you can go, including restoring the Voting Rights Act and all sorts of other stuff that's going to help uplift people out of poverty.
With our team of leaders, we took to the street to raise awareness to the issues and the demands for the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. And we ended up taking an intersection. We laid down in the pedestrian crosswalk. We were there for several hours. And we were trying to raise awareness about the ways in which people are inconvenienced, as it were, by poverty. We know that creating some conflict and obstructing some traffic can be inconvenient, and that's not helpful for anybody. But the inconvenience that our poor siblings encounter on a regular basis by the criminalization of poverty, by the ecological destruction and devastation that they suffer in their communities, and so many other ways. We were trying to raise that awareness and to help people understand that our country needs a moral center, needs to return to a moral center and lift up those who are most affected. So we sat for a while. The officers told us to leave the street. A few of us stayed, and we were arrested.
I'm Lauren Tazi, and I'm also part of the Poor People's Campaign. And probably the biggest reason I'm with the Poor People's Campaign is because I want to fight for people who can't fight for themselves, who don't have a voice, who are dispossessed, who are invisible in our society. But also as an educator, I do believe that when babies and children are growing up, they need nutrition. And if you don't have enough food, if you're living in poverty and you've got a lot of stress, it's going to affect them, and it could affect them for the rest of their lives. Poverty is an illness in this country, and we just have to eradicate it. And part of our campaign is to educate, agitate, and organize, just like Mother Jones said. And I believe that it's imperative that people get into the streets and we fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, who don't have a voice.
I was part of the protest because I believe that the Poor People's Campaign looks at things systemically, so that they're not just approaching poverty or racism or environmental degradation or militarism. It's all of these things together, and it's a moral movement. So that was something I can put my heart and soul and body into, is standing up for what it is that we ought to be doing for each other in this world and for our earth, to make sure that we're in it. And so I was willing to lie in the street to do this, because it's really important to me that as citizens we say we will take care of each other and the world.
My name's Naomi Finkelstein, and I'm part of ADAPT, Washington ADAPT, and the Washington Poor People's Campaign. And I think that talking about I think it's time now. Like, we've run out of time to do siloed organizing. We have to all come together and work together and interlock the issues and get past differences, because the time is over for that. We've run out of time. And I guess because things are terrible. People are dying. George Jackson once said, "Get over your squabbles. Fascism is already here." And I believe that. And I'm part of this campaign. I've been there for nearly every action, doing support work, being out front, because in these times, I don't want to be a good German. I want to fight and resist, because even if we don't win, I want our children to know that we did everything possible to resist what I think is deep immorality in our country. And because my soul cries out for justice.
Regarding our jail time, there were 7 of us, 5 women, 2 men. Rachel Maxwell, this lovely woman right next to me, and Leslie Cushman, who could not be here today, and I were released about 1:30 in the morning The police told everyone on the outside, the jail solidarity people who had our coats, keys, money, phones, because you don't want to take that inside. They told everyone on the outside, we're not releasing anybody tonight. But they did release Rachel and I and Leslie at 1:30 in the morning with no phones, no coat, no money, no keys, no way to get home. That was certainly a public safety issue, and I think that as nonviolent protesters, we were not treated very well. And to let 3 women out with nothing says something about our criminal justice system. And frankly, it really made me angry, and I think everybody should know that story.
I'm Kelly Dalmanoth. I'm the pastor serving the community of Shoreline at Ronald United Methodist Church. And as Christina talked about some of the local work that we do, I've had a heart for working with and alongside the vulnerable and the most affected by our unjust systems. And we in Shoreline are now working to bring a community court to Shoreline so that we might eliminate some of the punitive work that our criminal justice system does. Whether it's intentionally set up that way or not, but it is laden with racism, it criminalizes poverty. And so the work that our courts in Shoreline, some of our judges and our court system are working to bring community courts so that we might lift folks hopefully out of poverty. We might not keep beating them down and pushing them down and heaping up more and more burdens on them. And so my hope is that not only does it bring us into a national frame of mind of working together across all levels and around this notion of intersectionality, that we also take all of that work home and we work in our local communities to work with the folks who are affected, because it's not an abstract idea. These are real folks who live alongside of us, who ride the bus next to us, who sleep outside of our buildings. And if we are ignoring them, then we are ignoring the mission and the call for this moral revival.
Moving forward, where we want to go is beyond, the street protests are great. Some of us are now kind of muted because of our agreement with the courts, but we're going to be helping people get registered to vote. We're going to be pushing for policy change. We want to influence this next presidential election as well as local elections. So this is really just long term. It's going to keep going, whatever needs to be done at any given step. And where I'd really like to go is to see more folks being organized in their own communities. We're doing a lot of stuff in King County right now because that is kind of the bigger, more populated part of the state, but we'd really like to see more people in other parts of the state bringing us out there, telling us what's going on in their communities so that we can empower them in any way that we can.